Hey, Mark.
What's up? What's going on?
How are you?
I'm doing good. What's up with you?
Wait, look at you. Got the Billie Jean in the
Hey
background.
man,
And
that's how we do. That's how we
I
do.
love it. You got some R&B loving
Hey
going
man.
on over there.
Well, you already see it in the platform date night, so I had to make it look like a date night. You know what I mean? Really, I call it date night because it's really centered around the first initial date.
Usually that first date is like your first time meeting them in person, right? A get to know each other. So it could
Okay.
be something short and sweet. What are acceptable first dates?
Well, let's define dating. Dating is basically just gathering information. And it simply means data. That's basically what it means. Nothing more, nothing less. So you're
Okay.
gathering data, all right? And so so it's from the online perspective, I always have a rule. I say, let's take 1 week to really get an opportunity to talk to each other on the phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
1 week of really getting to know each other. So then at that point, you will probably know what an acceptable date would be, right? Because
Okay.
you're talking from a standpoint of gathering information. What makes that person tick, right? What
Mm-hmm.
makes what is this person like? What kind of food they like? It usually comes up in the conversation if you talk long
That's
enough,
true.
right? So for me, and I'll say this for men, and I'll just say for me and for men that because we do serial date for the most part, most men serial date, to
Mhm.
really cut back on time, which I would say time wasted, the phone conversation definitely needs to be number one. After that, then I would say the actual physical meetup for me, what would be acceptable will be based upon what she says, and typically that centered around something real low key, such as coffee, desserts, walks, and one of those things are gonna fit within the person you're dating. I'm sure you're gonna find something they like, but it can be definitely low key because again, once you meet that person in person, then at that point, you can kind of get a better, you can feel the energy at that point and just move
For
further.
the next date. I
Absolutely.
like that. I like that. Okay, we got Kiki on the line. Let me add her. Hey, Kiki.
Hello.
He was just
Mhm.
giving us his perspective on the first dates. So I want to hear from you because this was your question. What do you feel is an acceptable first date?
So like I heard what he said and I agree a lot. Like I think that it should be pretty low key. Like I think that especially if we're meeting on a dating app and however this is, we've talked a few times and now we've decided okay, we want to go out or whatever. I do think that it should be low key. Like I don't think it needs to be this extravagant thing. I think the reason why I asked the question, just because I see, all the chatter around social media around first dates, like where you're eliminating people because they took you to Cheesecake Factory. And I'm just kind of like, well, I eat Cheesecake
I like
Factory.
she's
I I eat food. I eat food, so I'm not like this person that's like, oh, he took me here. Oh, it's not like that for me. And I think, like, I don't know what people are thinking in just dating, because to me, dating is collecting data.
Yep.
That's
Like, so
Latin. It's
I'm
actually
getting to
Latin.
know you.
Right.
So we can do that. Like I said, I think walks are great. I think, coffee dates, and then we'll go from there. Cause I think that if you and a person vibe, like that coffee date can turn into something else. Like I've had all day dates before,
Mhm.
if it just ends up being like that.
Yep,
So yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I think that because I remember like the list that came out and it was like these are not acceptable first dates, right? And it was like a lot of things on that list. I was like, I actually don't mind some of those things, but I think to me, because we're talking like especially like when you meet someone online, like that first date is more like for collecting data and like
Mhm.
a meet and greet. Now, if this is like a date, like maybe like I don't know, second or third date where it's like I don't know, we're trying to see the value that he's placing. I'm saying he, like, as the man is planning a date and he's, you
Right.
know, he's the value that he,
there's no we in that. There's no we in that first
so
one.
yeah, so it's like, so maybe, you know, judging like where future dates after that initial meet and greet, where that is, that might, you know, I can see like having a standard when it comes to that. But I was just about to say, before Mark joined, that like I kind of I didn't even know I had to make this a rule, but I had to like have a rule where I'm not going to travel 30 minutes away from my home for this first date.
That's a
You
great
know,
rule. I
yeah,
concur.
yeah, and it's because I mean, like, just literally, I just met someone that was like in North Carolina and in Charlotte, and so he was like, "Oh, well, we can meet in South Carolina. That's halfway." Not for the first date. We're not doing that. Like that, because that's too much of an investment in time, right? You don't
Mhm.
even know much about this person yet. I still, I go back to women, like our safety. Like, it's not safe for me to travel outside of my, you know, immediate area alone to go meet a stranger, you know?
Right, right. So I'll say this, especially on the cheesecake thing, as far as I've heard women say, um, they're worth more than a cup of coffee, right? And you know, I've heard that not from me, but I've heard other men say that because I don't attract those type of women. But I'll say this. I'll say this. Typically, those who expect more or expect a certain tier, like as far as high end, and say I'm more worth XYZ. Let's be honest, they probably couldn't afford it themselves anyway,
Mm,
right?
Right.
They better couldn't afford it themselves anyway. It's an opportunity for them to experience something they never have, because typically those who have experienced it, it's not going to make a big deal if they don't go, right? They want to do something
that's
different
true.
anyway, right? So
Yeah.
they probably can't afford it. So that's what I would
Yeah.
probably say.
Yeah. That is true. And yeah, I
Very true.
like, I just don't feel like there's grown women like trying to get a meal these
It
days.
happens. It's
Like,
called foodie calls. We call it foodie calls. Like booty calls, it's called foodie calls, right?
booty call.
They only gonna call you when they
Man.
ready to eat. So we've coined that term as being, it's considered being foodie calls. So
A foodie
it
call.
happens.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens. It happens.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do no foodie calls. I
Mm-mm.
remember I had actually went out with this. Well, no, I met this guy like on social media, and we talked for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and we were actually getting ready to, actually go out on a date. And so he chose Outback, right? He chose an Outback for like, he sent me the address. He's like, meet me here. Now, I objected to the restaurant, not because it was Outback, but because it was like in McDonough, which was like a 45-minute drive for me and probably like 10 minutes for him. So all I said was, well, ugh, Outback and McDonough. I said, there's Outback on Camp Creek. There's plenty of restaurants on Camp Creek. Here are some options. He didn't like that.
Right, right,
He
right.
was like, I sent him some options and he was just like, um, wow. He was like, okay, so I ask you out on a date and you want to choose a location. I
Okay,
was
repeat that
like,
again. Repeat that again. There's so much wrong with that. What did he say again to you?
his reply to me when I sent him some locations here near me, he
Uh-huh.
said, wow, you want to, he said, I'm asking you out and you want to choose the location.
Oh, like you
And
the
Okay,
audacity?
okay.
I said, I, I said, well, you, first of all, you never asked me what I liked.
Mm.
Cause,
Right.
and like, it doesn't, like, why do I have to travel for somewhere convenient for you? Like, kind of like, what, these places are near me. Like, why can't you come to me? And so I guess he didn't like the list. And so one of the things on the list was like Candy's restaurant. Candy has a couple of restaurants over here.
Right.
They're not expensive or anything like that. But I was like, yeah, Candy's is open. We can go to Old Lady Gang. We can go here. We can go there. He's like, okay, I mean, that's fine. I mean, if you want to treat, now I gotta pay.
Yeah. So Outback. Oh yeah, you know what? According to his scale, Old Lady Gang was definitely a little bit more, more expensive than Outback. But I always say this. I have a rule of thumb. I tell men this too. I mean, if you can't afford to date, don't even date. Get yourself together. All right, get yourself together.
Yeah,
don't do that. They're gonna be there. One thing I realized that honestly, I'm gonna say this very boldly, right? I'm gonna say this. So I just could recall having or being around women at an early age is my 20s, right? I'm 50, right? I'm gonna tell you one thing that has not changed: the ability to get to a woman. So in 25 years, the women will be there, fellas, right? You ain't gotta rush. They're gonna be there. Get yourself together, right? So if she say, let's go to Old Lady Gang, guess what? You ain't gonna even blink at it. So, and then two, you got to have a hunter's mentality, right? You shouldn't even have to, you should never put her in a position where she has to make that choice anyway, right? And if you got to make that choice typically on the first date, guess what? It says a lot about what type
a
of
lot. Yeah.
you're dealing with. So that's just coming from a man's perspective.
I appreciate that. I totally agree with that. So, and just so I know I'm not crazy, that's not like, yes, I did, gasp at the Outback in McDonough. Cause I'm just like, if you're gonna choose Outback, that's just like, it's Outbacks everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's way
Based on the location.
right. And that's way back to my Outback. That's way back from where you at.
Yeah, it's just based on the location.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so I never, he got a sandwich and blocked. And before I even got a chance to unfriend him, he had unfriended me. So I was like, okay, you in your feelings.
Well, you know what? That's a great thing that honestly, I say this, especially with dating apps. Like, since we're talking dating apps from my perspective, I haven't been on dating app in years. It's probably been over 15 years. But I'll tell you this: it's almost like ordering pizza, right? For a man, right? It's so many varieties and shapes and sizes and stuff. You can say, okay, let me order a thick girl. Let me order light skin, right? Bam, you get your listings, right? And so those who don't want to cooperate, guess what? On to the next, right? Because there's so many choices. So guess what? I'm saying this indirectly. You actually really save yourself a lot of time. A person that just blocks you and moves on forward like that. You know what? The angels or somebody was watching you. So guess what? You did you a favor.
He did. Yeah. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Okay, so we got some more folks joining. Yeah, so I feel like we all have a consensus with this first date, that it can be, something short and sweet. It's not about the amount of money you're going to spend, because again, this is just an opportunity to gather more data. It definitely should be somewhere that you can talk, preferably not over loud music. You can't talk in the movies. I don't think that's a good date. And no overnight trips to another city.
No, overnight trips typically come a little bit later on. That's a whole nother subject. But yeah, and the whole night later on will be real. Real quick, I want to touch that. It's funny because one thing about those look, overnight dates or weekend dates are great because guess what? Either one or two things gonna happen. You're gonna really like them, or you're gonna really hate them, right? You ever took those trips when you went to like Savannah somewhere, and I'm gonna go first time, let's go out and take the trip, right? And then you come back with this thing in your mind like, I can't wait to get out of this car, get rid of it. You know what I mean? So those dates definitely do come in due time, but I definitely say when you feel really comfortable, let's go ahead and get that because it's gonna tell you a lot about a person when you take them out of that environment. So
Absolutely.